Hello everyone, welcome back to Pega tutorials. In today's session, I am going to explain about an option called do not save property data. Okay, so let us look into this option. See, do not save property data in the sense which is also known as transient, which is also known as transient. So what do you mean by transient? Not to persist, not to persist. When you're trying to save when you're trying to save a particular record into the DB or into the database, while saving the record, let's say one of the column data I do not want to persist, then we go and use this particular option called transient. I mean, people who are familiar with Java, this is not new to them, right? Yeah. So transient means what? Not to persist into the DB. Not to persist into the DB, what exactly? The property value. Basically, you know that the property is going to hold the data, right? Now, this data, whether you want to persist or not, okay? So you can business, I mean, you can, the business will tell you that, okay, whether to persist the data or not, okay? If you do not want to persist the data, then you will be going and selecting an option called do not save property data. So this is the option, okay? See, so what this particular option is saying about here, select to cause the value of the property to be omitted when any clipboard page containing this property is committed to the Pega rule database. Now I'll go and explain you practically how this can be achieved. Okay, so we'll try to understand the first statement. So I have already started my instance, local instance. Okay, so now let us look into that. You see, I have a form which is to collect the personal information. Okay, so I created a data type called personal. Now into this data type, I have added some fields like first name, last name, full name, and email address. So these are the fields that I have grouped under this data type. Okay, yeah. So now what I was doing, I was collecting the personal info. Now, once after collecting the personal info, then I'll be going to click on the save button. So whenever you click on the save button, you know that the data will be persisted into the database, right? Into the database table itself. Okay. So let's say, for example, without that option, first let us see, without selecting that do not save property data option, let us see the behavior. Okay. The first name, let's say, for example, I'm giving it as some name, let's say for example Ramesh. Okay, the last name, let's say Rao, right? And let's say the full name Rao Ramesh. Okay, and the email address, let's say rao@gmail.com. So these are the details. Now once I click on save, what happens in the background? You know that the data will be persisted into the DB, into the database. Not only persisted, it will be also available on your clipboard. You can click on the clipboard. You could see the data will be available on which page? On the personal page. You see the data, whatever we just clicked on the save, it's there on the clipboard, and as well it will be also persisted into the database. Okay. So once I close this case, let's say I know that the data has got persisted into the background table. Now I'm just closing the case. Just do remember the case ID C-1003, right? Now let us close this case. I just clicked on the save button. So data got persisted. Now let us close this case and open the case. Now once you open the case, the same instance, I mean the same case. Now, do you think that data will be available or not? Data will be there, right? So if you try to open the same case again, because you saved the data has to again display the data, whatever we have entered, it should be displayed actually. So see, it is getting displayed. Now, why it is getting displayed? Because we persisted the data into the DB. So that persisted data again, it is coming up. I mean, it is popping up, right? The same data we are able to see on the screen. Now let's do one thing. So I'll show you how to make use of this particular option now. What is that option? Do not save property data. Now, where that option will be available? That option will be available basically on the property itself. So what you can do, you can open the data type, personal, and you can go to the fields. Yeah, let me click on the first name property, open the first name property. Now go to the advanced tab here. You see there is an option called do not save property data. So let me select this checkbox, save. I'm saying. So let us do it for all the properties. Let's say, for example, I do not want to persist the data of all these properties. Let me also open the last name property and let me choose uh, do not save property data. Yeah, so I'm selecting that. Let me go to the full name. Let me also make the full name as do not save property data. Yeah, selected the checkbox. Similarly, let us also do the same for your email address. So go to the advanced tab of the property and let us mark this checkbox. Okay, I'm done with all the properties now. Now, what we are saying, do not save property data. So when we say do not save property data, you see here, we selected the checkbox, right? That selection will cause the value of the property to be omitted. I mean, it won't be saved. Okay, it won't be saved into the database itself. Now let's see whether it is getting saved or not. Now what I'll do is I'll just close this. This we did before selecting the checkbox, right? So this data is there in the DB table. Now what I'll do is instead of this data, let me try to give yeah, let me give another first name, another value. Otherwise, this time let's say I'm giving the name as Lokesh and the last name as Babu. Okay, full name. Let's say I'm giving it as Lokesh Babu. Okay, and let's say the email address it is Lokesh. Okay, so fine. So this is the data which I have entered into all these fields. Now let me click on the save. Okay, I just clicked on the save. Now once you click on the save, now let's go to the clipboard and just check. Now let's go to the clipboard and just check under the PY work page on personal page. Now do you see the data on the clipboard? No, right? You don't see the data on the clipboard. And one more thing, one more interesting thing. Previously, whenever I click on the save button, it was going and posting on the clipboard, and not only posting on the clipboard, it is also getting persisted into the DB. Because of that reason, whenever we open the same case, I was able to get the same information. Now this time, if I close the case, I mean, even though I clicked on save, okay, and now when I click on the save, do you think that the data will be saved into the DB? Means it won't. So let's close the case and try to open the same case. Now see what happens. Will I be getting the same data again or not? Let me open the same case. Now, do you see that information is coming up here? No, right? That means the data has not persisted. If the data has persisted, then obviously the data should be available on the form, right? So this is the proof for that. Okay. Yeah. So that's what we are understanding, right? So similarly, the property has no value when an instance containing this property is opened to the clipboard from the Pega rules database. This is what we did. So whenever we are opening the property, okay, Whenever we are trying to open that form, the form has all the fields, right? So, okay, so whenever you are trying to open it, so that is what we are able to observe, that it's not having any data on the form. So the second statement uh, is describing that actually. Okay. Similarly, the property has no value when an instance containing this property is open to the clipboard from the database. Whenever you are trying to open the same case, okay. So I was not able to see the values on the form. Yeah. Let us continue. Let us continue. So, what is the advantage of marking this particular property as do not save property data? So, making or marking a property as a transient when when appropriate in the sense whenever it is required, whenever the business tells you that mark the property as transition, okay, improves. I mean, basically, the advantage is it is going to improve the performance by reducing the size of the storage stream property, which is that storage stream property here, nothing but your PZ PV stream property, right? Yeah. So actually, this is used to improve the performance by reducing what the size of the storage stream property. So when you are not persisting the data means obviously the performance gets, I mean, the performance will increase, right? Yeah. So while on the clipboard, the property can have of any length. Okay. So while on the clipboard, the property can have values of any length. Basically, we should not have long values, right? Long values. Let's say, for example, you have a field, and in that field, you are going and entering some value into it, and that value should not be long enough. Right? If it is long enough, then you are storing into the DB table, into that stream storage column, then the size it will increase, right? So performance will go and degrade. So the value should not be long enough. So if the value is long enough, then if I make the property as a transient, then that value won't even save into the DB table, right? Yeah. So that's what the reason he is saying that while on the clipboard, the property can have value of any length. So if the property is transient, then the property can have a value of any length, right? So it doesn't matter. Okay. But if you are saving, if you are persisting, if it is not transient, if you are persisting in the DB, the value should not be long enough, right? Yeah. If the value is long enough, then obviously the performance goes down, right? Yeah. Now let us look at more details about this option to not save property data. So select only for properties like what? Single value or aggregate. Okay. So just now what we have seen is like the single value properties, right? Like first name, all those are single value properties that I have gone and I selected this particular option. Okay. So, and whenever we select those option, I mean, whenever we select this particular option, the values that do not need to be saved in the database, that is what the significance of selecting that particular option, right? Yes. Okay. So now let me also give you more in details. Let's say, for example, mm, previously, I mean, let's say, for example, I'm going and marking all the fields as again. I mean, I'm selecting. I want to explain one more scenario here. Let's say I'm unselecting this option here, or I'm deselecting the option here. Okay, the last name also. Let me deselect this checkbox. Let me save it. Let me get into the normal form. I'm just saving it. And for the email address also, I just closed it. Just a moment. Let me go to the recents. Let me open the email address. And let me also deselect the checkbox. Okay. Let me deselect the checkbox and save it. Okay. Right. So full name. Yeah. So for all the properties, I deselected that option. Now let me go back again to the same case and let's enter the data. Okay. So let me this time give Mahesh. Okay, last name Babu, full name Mahesh Babu. Okay, so Mahesh at the rate gmail.com, let's say, and let me click on save. click on save and then also go and submit it. I have submitted even. Okay. Now let me submit to the next one. And again, see, right now I have reached to this stage called review. I was collecting the data at this submission stage. Now, once I come back, okay, I can even come back to that stage, right, by using the change stage option. Let me click on submit. Now, you see the data is still, I mean, it's available because we are persisting the data. So we are persisting the data. So once you click on submit, the data obviously either save or submit. Okay, obviously the data will be persist to the DB. Now let me close the case. Okay, close the case. Now what about the data which already has got saved into the DB? Okay, and now those values already got persisted, right? Now in that case, I need to explain this scenario. If you mark a property as transient, but saved instances of objects already exist in the Pega rules database. So let's say without marking the checkbox, I already submitted the data. Now, what about the existing data? Um, yeah, what about the existing data, which is already saved into the DB? Now, that existing data also, I do not want to. I mean, again, the values of those properties are removed only when if those objects are later opened and then again recommitted, then the data will not be saved into the DB. So, what ultimately is saying here is you saved the data into the DB table, but you did not mark. I mean, you did not selected the checkbox. So obviously the data will be saved. Now, what about the existing record? If I want to apply this do not save property data option, even for the existing data, which is there in the database, which is there in the database, then what you need to do, you have to reopen that particular data. I mean, you need to reopen that particular, you need to get the data again back onto the form and again apply that option, okay, but do not save property data, and then again go and recommit it. Then the data will not be persisted. That is what the meaning of this particular statement over here. Now we will try to see that practically. So what he is trying to say, so we already committed the data, we saved it, okay, data is persisted now. Now what we have to do is, let us again go and mark the properties as what, do not save property data. Let me go and again select the checkbox here. Okay, so I'm just marking for all the properties as what, do not save property data. So let me do that. Save. I'm done with it. Now what he's saying, you already persist the data, right? So let us open that same data. Okay, let us open that same case, same data. So okay, let me open it. Let me go back to the previous stage, submission stage, right? So let me click on submit. So once I reach to the review stage, then I'll get an option to change to the previous stage. Let me click on change stage. Now let me click on submit. Now see, the data will come because we have persisted it. Now again, if you recommit means once again you submit it. Now once again you submit it, now you already have gone and marked the box, right? Then obviously this data should not be persisted. Okay, this data should not be persisted. Now you see, when I come back to the same stage, uh, do you think that data will be there? It should not be, right? Let me click on submit again. Or one second, let me just close the case and open it. Okay, so that you will understand. Now let me open the same case again and just check. See, it is getting. See, now you don't see the data, right? Because you recommitted it. Recommitted and you, I mean, before recommitting, you went and you set the checkbox, right? Before recommitting, you went and you set the checkbox. Because of that reason, the data is not getting persisted. If it has got persisted, obviously I should be able to see that, right? Yeah. So that's all about this particular option. So hope you all understood this option. So thank you all.